The idea of net zero travel sounds great. After all, it's traveling with zero emissions and zero guilt. Well, if you really want to have no impact, you might be better off staying at home. Want to see the world but reduce your impact? Then net zero travel could be your ticket. The term net zero travel is becoming more and more popular in the sustainable tourism industry and sustainable travel industry. But what does it mean, and why are people excited about zero? In this video, we'll explore what net zero travel is, its potential impacts, and why it's becoming such a popular topic. First, a definition. We reach net zero when the amount we emit is no more than the amount removed. As the world increasingly looks to combat the climate crisis, the travel industry is one of the sectors most under scrutiny. With emissions from international aviation and shipping accounting for almost 5% of global emissions, and tourism for 8%, it's clear that the industry has a big impact on the environment. Now, more and more companies and organizations are committed to mitigating the impact of travel through initiatives such as offsetting sustainable tourism and things like that. I think we can agree that net zero travel sounds great. Inbox zero sounds great too, and every day I keep getting more emails. Maybe there's a parallel. Inbox zero is the Sisyphean act of trying to keep your inbox empty. It requires dedication to unsubscribing to annoying emails, archiving the emails you want to keep, responding to everything else. Net zero is a choice too. Likewise, net zero travel requires dedication to planning, to research, to caring about the future of the planet. Those don't happen by accident, and they're acts we must continually renew if we're serious about being a net zero traveler. But where do we even start if we want to be a net zero traveler? To the internet. Let's start with Good Wings, a sustainable travel agency on a mission to turn 1 billion trips net zero by 2030. According to them, net zero travel is easy. So what does it take? We can achieve net zero travel by calculating our emissions and removing the same amount or more of CO2 than what has been emitted with our travel. Calculating those emissions is as simple as going to this handy-dandy calculator and inputting your flight. Presto, emissions. We know about our emissions. Now it's time to do something about them. With Good Wings, they take revenues from bookings and invest them into biofuel or sustainable aviation fuel, while the remaining emissions are removed through carbon removal projects. Time for a quick distinction about these kinds of projects, because I'm sure you've heard about them before. So there are two kinds of credits, broadly speaking: CO2 compensation and CO2 removal. CO2 compensation is the practice of avoiding carbon emissions or helping to reduce future emissions. This can be through buying carbon credits that equal your emissions, or supporting investments in green energy, nature conservation, and more. CO2 removal is all about actively removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. That can be also investing in nature or technology-based carbon dioxide removal projects like tree planting, direct air capture, regenerative agriculture, things of that nature. It can also include blue carbon, which is focused on mitigating climate change through conservation and the restoration of coastal and marine ecosystems, including mangroves. So what's the problem? Besides the work you may need to do vetting companies to make sure they're making good on these lofty promises to save the planet, CO2 compensation is fundamentally the more brush it under the rug option. It makes us feel like we're okay to keep going and doing the things we were doing as long as we buy off our feelings. It might work in the short term, but it likely won't work on scale. So to recap, we have a calculator that helps us figure out our emissions, and many companies that can help us offset or remove the carbon from the trips we're going on. Now, when a company says net zero travel is easy, it is in a certain sense. It's easy to figure out your impact as far as emissions go. However, unless your love of traveling is just a love of flying to and from airports, your impact has to necessarily include your whole existence while you travel. Existential travel crisis, existential crisis travel, finally a kind of tourism I can get behind. So what else do you have to keep in mind about your trip? Let's start with this chart from McKinsey and see how far we can get before the existential crisis begins again. The true impacts of a trip start from booking and include each stop along the way until you get back again. This estimate includes 4 hours spent booking on your laptop, taxi to and from the airport, 2 nights in a hotel, rail tickets around town, drinks, restaurants, rental car, and the flights. So it sounds like a comprehensive list, but what's not included? Everything that you do and buy while you're traveling. Consider a small example. Did you buy a sweater Was it made locally or was it made in a different country? What material was it made from? Was it sustainably produced? Talk about an existential travel crisis. Because each stop we take, each activity we participate in, each restaurant we eat at, they get their food from somewhere else, their alcohol comes from somewhere else, the electric car we rent, that electricity has to come from another source. All of our actions have these direct implications, ones that we're immediately connected to, as well as indirect ones. To make more sense of this, let's scale back a bit and see how businesses handle the situation. But first, why would a business even be interested in net zero travel? Well, it could make good business sense. More than 2/3 of travelers expect the travel industry to offer more sustainable travel options. To that end, the WTTC recently released the Net Zero Roadmap with a focus on 5 industries in tourism. Now, why do I bring these up? If you're going to be traveling, knowing what businesses have the potential to do to make your trip net zero can help you decide who to go with so you can make your trip net zero. So let's think about these 5 businesses that you may end up supporting while you travel, in both a direct and indirect sense. 1, accommodation. It's everything from multinational hotel groups to small businesses with a single building. They can include hotels, hostels, resorts, vacation rentals, and more. 2, tour operators. These are the companies that compose and sell package tours, combining several travel components from various suppliers, adding their own components and expertise and selling them to you. 3, aviation, airlines. 4, cruises. The cruise is almost an accommodation in itself, a destination, and a tour operator, making it a complex industry that also includes both the ocean cruises and river cruises. And 5, tourism intermediaries, a broad way of thinking about online travel agencies, search engines. It's really this group of businesses that has kind of as a common role this distribution of travel opportunities, information, facilitating the searching and booking of travel products. So during our travels, we make choices about the businesses we support based on how they handle their emissions, or we can't. But just how do travel businesses track their emissions? There's a 3-pronged approach. According to the leading GHG protocol, corporate standard, a company's greenhouse gas emissions are classified into 3 scopes. Scope 1 and 2 are mandatory to report. Scope 3 is voluntary and the hardest to monitor. However, companies succeeding in reporting all 3 scopes could gain a sustainable competitive advantage. Good for business. So what does it all mean? So scope 1 is directly related to the reporting company. That includes things like the facilities they operate, vehicles they use. Scope 2 is indirect emissions that are owned, including the consumption of electricity, steam, heat, and cooling, so indirectly related to the running of the buildings, those vehicles. Scope 3 are the indirect emissions that are not owned by the business. This could be really all emissions linked to a company's operation. Business travel, people coming in, employees commuting back and forth, the waste generated. It's complicated, and we haven't gotten to the most complicated part yet. The calculators that we talked about earlier are good at calculating emissions on relatively simple trips, and that's related to the mandatory nature of scope 1 and 2. Those are important to understand. Scope 3 is the whole value chain, and it's optional. It's that missing piece of information which makes net zero travel complicated. As travelers, it's really not possible yet to know the exact impact we're having when we travel to a destination. So besides throwing our hands up in despair, existential travel crisis number 2, what can we do? Start with small actions. We have 5 steps now to get you started on the path to net zero with choices while businesses and industries get their act together. Number 1, fly as little as possible. It's not don't fly, it's just flying is one of the most carbon intensive forms of travel, so it's best to avoid unnecessary small trips. If you're going to fly economy. That reduces your share of the flight's emissions as you're a more efficient use of space, even as your knees run up against the back of the seat of the person in front of you. Consider direct flights instead of layovers, as it's takeoffs and landings that generate the most emissions. Number 2, support thoughtful accommodations. We'll call them thoughtful. Where you stay has a big impact on emissions too. Look for accommodation that publicly share their energy consumption and emissions data. When you know what they're doing, you can understand your impact too. Number 3, use less energy-intensive modes of transportation. If you're traveling domestically, opt for trains and buses over domestic flights. If you're traveling within the city, try the subway instead of a private car. Number 4, eat and shop local. Ever thought it was weird you could eat fresh sushi in the middle of a landlocked country? Well, you might be right. The cost to get that sushi there is high, no matter how delicious it might be. Eating and shopping locally is a great way to reduce your carbon footprint while traveling. Not only will you be supporting those local businesses, you'll be reducing emissions associated with Scope 2 and the notoriously difficult to understand Scope 3. 5. Stay longer. This is a message for you American travelers. Spend more time in one place. Instead of cramming in as many destinations as possible, hitting all the highlights in one single trip, just get to know the place better. Rent a room for a week or a month. When you're traveling around less, you can spend more time in the destination, because net zero travel is complicated enough on its own. But you know what else is complicated? Figuring out what to do with your snowshoes after the ice caps have completely melted. So, in the face of that impossibility, sometimes the only thing we can do is take the action in front of us. I hope this video has helped shed a little bit of light on net zero travel, how to get started with it, and why it really is going to play a big role in the future of travel. For more videos on the future of travel and tourism, subscribe to Future Pass, and I'll see you next time.